This is a Culture Inject production.
Welcome back, folks. Welcome back to Part of Us, an En Vogue Fancast. As a reminder, if you'd like to follow us online, visit us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at En Vogue Craze.
Stream our podcast on Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, Stitcher, Amazon Podcasts, YouTube, and anywhere else that you can stream podcasts. Ideas, interview requests, comments, and questions, email them to us at envoguecraze@gmail.com.
All right. This week's episode is about our favorite live performances. But first, we're going to head into what's trending.
So we asked our Instagram followers which would they prefer, an En Vogue biopic or an En Vogue Broadway Vegas stage production. The results are in, and 20% are in favor of a Broadway or Vegas musical, while 80% will prefer a biopic. Did any of you guys vote?
Of course.
What did you vote for?
Yes.
Of course I did.
What would you prefer?
Of course, we need to see the movie. We need the drama. We need the dirt. Like, I think a musical production would be cute, you know, but I think the movie would give you the nitty gritty, you know, the arguments, the shade, all the drama that, of course, people want to see.
I voted as well, and I voted for a biopic as well. I think that it would be entertaining and give more insight into like people's inner monologues, people's inner struggle. You know, like when this happened, you know, how did Cindy and Terry feel? When this happened, how did Maxine feel? You know what I mean? Like maybe we can get like some inside scoop on like Amanda Cole and like her story, or Rona. You know what I mean? Just like there are things that we can explore that our Broadway production would be too, you know, jazz hands, and and maybe that can come after a biopic, because I know that there are people like the Spice Girls or Britney Spears who have Broadway musicals inspired by their music, which I guess is cool to like to have their catalog be the soundtrack for the production. But I want the drama. I want the story. I want to see some behind the scenes that we never knew that happened. And I want to see the girls really go for it, especially I feel like with the success of the Clark Sisters biopic. If they can get that vulnerable, I think En Vogue can too. So give me that biopic.
But I would only want it if everyone is participating. Like everyone has to give their, experience, because otherwise it's like, it's just going to be kind of cheesy to me.
You're going to be one-sided.
Yeah.
But as we'll get to later, everybody got a different version of events. So I don't know.
I
don't know that we'll ever actually get like on the same page. But I agree. I think a biopic would be a great idea. Like a multi-night. I don't need a condensed 1.5 hours. Like I really appreciated the New Edition one. The New Edition one was really, really well done.
And even like the Jacksons who did like theirs was 5 parts. So like 10-hour journey. So. Agreed.
You need a different night for every girl to tell her version of the story.
Right. Because have you guys seen that movie about Tanya Harding? I forget what it's called. It came out a couple.
Tanya.
Yeah, and it was like telling it from her perspective. You know, it was kind of just. It would be really neat to kind of see like everyone's different perspective of the same event. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like that would be very entertaining, because I'm sure it would be like at least 3 different versions of the same night, you know?
Yeah, you talk to all the girls and like just see like what was your mindset, what was going on in your head, what was going on in your life when this happened. I feel like it will inform, you know, why a certain person did what they did. You know, like for example, like the whole litigation situation. You know, like obviously Donna and Maxine have their own interpretation of like, oh, you know, them dirty bitches, you know, in the interview, like you have your own interpretation of like why they did what they did, but perhaps Cindy and Terry, they can elaborate and say, well, this is where we were coming from. You know, you don't have to agree, but at least you can understand people's sides of the coin, per se. So,
well, I guess I'm the only one. I didn't vote because I'm not on Instagram, but I would like a Broadway musical. I think I would love to see the jazz hands And I think you would get, you could get songs that they didn't do. Like, I feel like the biopic, of course, is supposed to be like real life, so it's going to be the same songs we've been hearing for the last 30 years. Or 25 or whatever. But with a Broadway show, like, there could be songs like when Dawn gets kicked out, then she could have a song. Like, I was just watching Jim and the Holograms, and there was an episode where Roxy left the Misfits and she had her song. It was like, I'm gonna change my luck. And I was like, oh my God, that would be so cool if like Dawn, like she gets kicked out and she has a song. I mean, there's just, I just feel like there's more opportunities to be creative. I love creativity. So I think that would be so nice to kind of celebrate their hits and then also have, new music and just expand on the story and just make it grand. So I would be in favor of not Las Vegas, absolutely not Las Vegas, but Broadway.
It has to be Broadway. Period.
Yes. I think both would be good. I think the movie would be more in depth, and like a Broadway show would give you like an overall like idea, of what they're trying to say versus the film.
I think it could be really interesting to do like the thing I liked about what the Spice Girls did with it was that they did I think they kind of did a musical, or maybe it was somebody else. I don't know. Kind of like the Dreamgirls effect, where it's like loosely based on like, so that you could take a lot of creative liberties to make something that feels more consumable by like the masses. So I think like the fans want to see like the particulars and the details of like what happened. So I think like a biopic works for that, but like a musical means you can give Dawn a swan song and you can let her have her I am changing moment, or
exactly. she needs it. Broadway presents Don't Let Go, an En Vogue musical. There you go. Boom.
Yes.
Boom. Bro, let's do it. Call me Cindy Terry. Call me. No, I'm kidding. But speaking of, I was in a Facebook group, which is for like En Vogue super fans or whatever, and someone posed this question that really made me think. And the question was, are other girl groups like SWV and Escape more highly regarded by the industry than En Vogue? For example, SWV and Escape were both honored by BET and the Soul Train Awards, but En Vogue has not. So people are begging the question like, well, does the industry, does the audience, do they like those groups more than En Vogue? Are they more popular? What is your take? Matan, I want to hear from you first, because I feel like...
Oh, why, thank you. Well, one, I think they picked the wrong groups to maybe compare En Vogue to. I don't feel like they're comparable. I guess, maybe history can be revisionist, and I guess like as years go on, people can kind of muddy everything, and like you can say like, oh well, the Supremes are a 60s girl group, even though they're so much more than that. En Vogue to me is just so much more than a 90s girl group, and so I just feel like they're kind of, I'm at a loss for words. But no, okay, to get straight to the question, no, I don't feel like they're more respected. I don't feel like they got the Sammy Davis Jr.'s awards and all of the commercials and all the stuff that En Vogue got in their heyday. I think history is revisionist in this sense because they're more visible due to reality shows and Real Housewives of Atlanta, T.I., it's things like that. So
exactly,
they have more visibility, and I think that's what it is. And like, for instance, Tiny, she had a BET show. Soul Train is BET. BT is BET. I feel like pretty much all the Escape girls lived on TV at some period of time. You had Tiny and Toya. You had The Family Hustle. You have Real Housewives of Atlanta. Probably more reality shows than I can remember. I know Latasha did R&B Divas. Right.
R&B Divas.
SWV.
Escape had their mini-series for their tour.
Right. What was it called? Just Kicking It. Every man was a woman. And then SWV, they had a BET show. Taj had a Marry the Baller. Taj was on Survivor. Then they had the show on We. So I just feel like they have more visibility now, and it's reality. It's just all based on kind of reality, but in the long run, the music that En Vogue has, it like even with them not being as visible and just touring, like you watch just random stuff like Selena the series, they're playing Give It Up, Turn It Loose. Young Sheldon, like they had that I mean, it wasn't in the episode, but there was like a preview was never going to get. It's their music holds up better, and their music it just shows up in movies and commercials, and so I don't think they're really comparable to me. Like if it was like TLC or Spice Girls, maybe there would be an argument, but Escape and SUV, no. And I have their records. I love them, but they're just not comparable.
Let's be real. En Vogue, those groups can't hold a candle to En Vogue.
That's right.
Because you have 4 women who are all lead singers, who are all well versed in a myriad of different talents, whether it's acting, modeling, singing. I just feel like SWV. Coco is the front runner.
Yes.
The other 2 are just glorified background singers. As wonderful as they are, as much personality that they have, they're not Coco, But each woman in Vogue, they all have their moments, and every single iconic song, each one of them has a lead. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I feel like even with Escape, Tasha Scott is like their premier singer, but I'm like the other 3, and I love Candy. She's super cute on Atlanta Housewives, but she's a writer. She's not a front runner girl.
And she wasn't their writer either, which is interesting to me. It's like
exactly. So her claim to fame came after the group broke up,
right?
So it's like yeah, maybe Escape has had a chance to kind of rebrand because Candy is a TV personality and because she's very visible, so her brand has allowed them to have a new shelf life for their group. But En Vogue, they haven't. En Vogue could just been En Vogue. You know what I mean? So I don't think that they're more regarded. I think En Vogue is that girl, has always been that girl, and will always be that girl.
I agree.
I think I saw at first I thought it was a typo, but Champ put SWC and I was like, ooh, the shade. I was like, okay, sisters with Coco.
Yeah, they're not even important enough for me to do a spell check. Who cares?
Can I say one thing though? Like, I hope you all have seen this. If not, you should totally go watch it. There's a show on Netflix called This Is Pop, and they did like an episodic sort of journey through different types of or eras or components of pop music. So they did like a whole episode on auto-tune. They did a whole episode on why is Sweden this epicenter of good pop music. But they did a whole episode on Boyz II Men that I thought was really interesting because they basically laid the groundwork for why Boyz II Men was such a pivotal boy group or boy band. And then talked about how they don't get their love because everybody that came after them basically stole what they did. So like New Kids on the Block and all of the boy bands of the 90s, they're sort of
Backstreet Boys, NSYNC, 98 Degrees.
They're all derivatives of Boyz II Men. I kind of think a little bit about that when I think about En Vogue, because I feel like En Vogue came a little bit before even the groups that we're talking about here. So I feel like they laid a groundwork that they don't get credit for, and then other girls got to leverage it and take advantage of it in more visible ways, and so they get the love. But like the originators, or the folks who really did it first or better, don't get the love.
Yeah, did you see Escape singing that kind of crunchy version of Hold On Teen Summit, like before they had a record deal? And I know SWV, they sang En Vogue songs, and they studied En Vogue. Coco has said it, so it's not like they haven't given En Vogue props. So I'm just like, where is this coming from? Why are people saying this?
Come on, voice of reason.
Look, Jonathan.
I can feel it. There's something coming.
It's such a layered topic. Let's see.
Smooth it out for us.
Well, I think there's just different ways you can look at it. Like, I think SWV and Escape, when it comes to like black culture, I think they have records that resonate a little bit more for black people. Like SWV and Escape are not getting honored at the Grammys or some other mainstream situation. Like, they have hit records that specifically really target black people. Like I was at a bar Thursday night, and I'm listening to a SWV mix, you know, or I'm hearing, you know, Just Kicking It, or Who Can I Run To? Like, I feel like as a black person who listens to black radio, I do hear SWV and Escape far more than I ever hear En Vogue, with the exception of Hold On, which is definitely one of those records that I think is in rotation a lot. But I say all that to say, I think those other two groups just have a stronger urban appeal, whereas En Vogue to me was definitely more mainstream than the other two groups, more successful. They sold more records. They had more of that kind of universal appeal. Like when I saw En Vogue in concert over the summer, I mean, you know, they were like white people, you know, different races kind of singing these songs who I'm pretty sure they wouldn't know SWV or Escape. So I think that it just has a lot to do with those other two groups having that appeal. You know, like Weak is one of those songs that is still relevant to this day. You know what I mean? And they hate
that song so.
But it is like a huge record, and
it's an iconic song.
It is, and like in my opinion, I think like if you're talking about like a versus situation, for example, I don't think En Vogue has a record that can beat Weak. Just that one song. I absolutely don't. I don't think so. Especially when you think about like black people. When black people hear "Weak" by SWV, that is an instant karaoke. We are going to sing. We are going to, you know, do the breakdown and do all of that. Yeah, I'm just talking about one song. I'm not. I'm just saying, like, I think they have a. I'm just speaking to. I think they have songs that just cater more to the black audience. Like Rain, what was that SWV song that was going viral on TikTok? Like all late, I think it was Rain.
I think it was.
Yeah,
I think it was.
You know, like that song is 20 years old and it's still like it is going viral in 2021 on TikTok. You know what I'm saying? Like I think they just have certain records that appeal a little bit more. I don't think they're a better group. I don't think they haven't sold more albums or anything. I just think it's black people feeling that thing. And the other thing is, I have to say that if I were like BET or Soul Train or whatever, and I wanted to like give someone a Lifetime Achievement Award, like I'm going to want to see the original group. I'm going to want to see Taj, Coco, and Lily. I'm going to want to see Tiny, Tamika, Candy, Latasha. You know, like I want to see the people that they know. One of the things that's working against En Vogue is that, I mean, during their height and their, you know, their success, it was 4 of them. Now it's 3. So I think that's also one of the things that may have something to do with them not getting some of those other opportunities that the other groups get that have their original members.
Well, I mean,
that's a valid point. That's a valid point.
I mean, I get what you're saying to a certain extent, because it's like we're all from different cities. So like in Los Angeles, I don't hear Escape if I listen to like the black stations that we have are the urban R&B station that we have. It's like The Wave, KJLH. I don't hear Escape at all. And maybe it's more so if you're in a southern region, you know, where they're from, you might hear it. Like I know when I go to DC, like I hear
it's very Atlanta heavy, very DMV heavy.
Right.
You know.
So that could have something to do with it.
Yeah, not the West Coast.
And then kind of like the stereotype of what black listeners listen to. Like Tracy Chapman is huge, but I guess maybe she doesn't have that kind of urban sound, so she'll never get honored for anything by BET or Soul Train. But as far as respect and name recognition and value, I don't think they have that. Like, it's great that they got a Lifetime Achievement Award from BET and Soul Train, but I just feel like, you know, it has more so to do not so with the music, because I don't think the music has really jumped and sold because of the exposure. It's more so the celebrity aspect, and that's basically what drives the culture now, celebrity and social media.
Sure.
So, but I mean, I see what you're saying.
No, it makes sense. I think that when if you do Lifetime Achievement, you can have all 5 of them there. The same way they all came when they honored the lady whose name I keep forgetting, and I'm so sorry.
Sylvia
when they
Rome.
came together, it was 5 of them. Sylvia Rone, they all came together for that specific purpose. And one, we all know Dawn is not missing an En Vogue honor. She will be there. She will be there.
The difference though, I feel like is that like the drama with like lineup changes happened, and it continues to be a point of tension after they peaked. It's like what's a girl group where like I'm trying to think. I keep pulling up the Spice Girls because I don't know why, but like when they all five got back together, it was a big deal, right? Because like they were the group that was at their peak. That was all five of them, and so I feel like bringing all five currently like they did with Sylvia Rone doesn't have an impact, because unfortunately the masses are unfamiliar with like the fact that Rone has been holding it down for however many years. And so like it really is, unfortunately, they're in such a like between a rock and a hard place, because they don't get the same privileges that a lot of other groups do because of how the drama went. But I do think that like JP has a point about that, but in more so, I feel like there's also, to Matan's point, there's something wrong with how we honor people or how we choose to honor people, because there's lots of Black entertainers that fall outside of urban R&B, etc. genres, and that deserve love from Black entertainment television.
Exactly. Like, how's the Pointer Sisters never been honored by BET, but SWV and Escape have?
I was just gonna say the Pointer Sisters, like that is I love the Pointer Sisters, but they don't get that recognition. But I think their demo was definitely a little bit different at their peak.
I mean, like it's like it's them. You see it with like Dionne Warwick. You see it with like Tracy Chapman was just mentioned. I feel like there's a lot of, especially Black women artists who have existed on that sort of like peripheral, or on that like line between R&B and other genres, that I feel like that are just deserving of their flowers, that don't get them.
Well, hold on. I don't remember SWV or Escape getting like an honor from BET, unless I missed something.
Soul Train.
SWV got the Soul Train like
Train
icon,
oh,
the version of
that's
the icon
right.
was.
That was a few years back. Okay, I remember that.
So, if you have footage of En Vogue, video or audio, especially early En Vogue, and you don't mind sharing it, please send it to us at partofusevf@gmail.com, and we'll host it on our YouTube channel and credit you, of course. We're always looking to add to our library. We want the archive. We want to be the premier archive of all the En Vogue stuff. So if you have something to share, please go ahead and send it to us. And it's time now for us to jump into today's discussion.
Why an episode about our favorite En Vogue performances? Well, because the group has many standout performances, some might even say iconic, from their 30 plus years in the business. So why not reminisce about some of our favorites? Hearing that En Vogue would be performing on a show, you knew you were in for a treat. It was always an event. And like Arsenio Hall said, you never know what 4 women would show up, because their looks and style would change so often.
I think I'm going to get into my third favorite En Vogue performance of all time, and this one is their tribute to the Shirelles. I don't remember the name of the program that it was from, but it was 1991. They were introduced by Dionne Warwick, and they did a medley. I guess you could call it medley. It's 2 songs. They did Mama Said and Soulja Boy.
Mama said there'll be days like this. There'll be days like this. Mama said. Mama said. Mama said. Mama said there'll be days like this. There'll be days like this. Mama said. And then she said, someone will look at me like I'm looking at you one day. And then I might find I don't want you any old way, so I don't worry. No, I don't worry. 'Cause I'm waiting for my soldier boy. Oh, my little soldier boy.
love this performance because I'm a Sherelle's fan. I think En Vogue is my all-time favorite girl group of all time. And then the Sherelles and the Pointer Sisters are, top 3 for me. I feel like the Sherelles are super underrated. So it was so nice to see them get a tribute. I think it was 3 surviving members. One had already passed, and this was before they got into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. En Vogue just did an incredible job. It was Cindy only for Mama Said, and Maxine did these great ad-libs for Soulja Boy. The harmonies were on point, and I love that performance. And I hope one day En Vogue, maybe not a recorded cover, but I hope they do cover Will You Still Love Me Tomorrow. That's my favorite, one of my favorite Sherelle songs. They have so many good ones. And I feel like there's a lot of parallels to those two groups. Obviously, Shirley Austin Reeves was the lead singer of the Shirelles, but they were more so democratic than other groups of the time. Like, it wasn't like the Ronettes or the Supremes, where there was an actual lead singer who sang everything, and the other members kind of, they might not even have been in the studio that day that the song was recorded. It was really about the 4 of them. Their first song, I Met Him on a Sunday, was something they came up with in high school. They wrote it. It charted nationally, and then they hooked up with these great songwriters who wrote the classics that are just huge. And so hearing En Vogue sing them, pay tribute to them, it's very special to me. And it was a great vocal performance. They looked beautiful. I wasn't crazy about the outfits or anything, but it was, for me, it was just the vocals, and it was them singing, songs that they don't sing all the time too. Because, when you go through performances and it's like, they did Free Your Mind 1,000 times. They've done, their songs so many times, but, we'll probably never hear them sing, those 2 again. So it's special. I was just going to say, since we were just talking about tributes, who would you want to see En Vogue tribute? Would you want to see En Vogue tribute another group or artist?
I would love to see them do the Pointer Sisters.
Me too, yes.
Or Climax. I want to see them do
Emotions.
Oh, yeah.
But they do the Emotions all the time.
I want to see full-fledged performance, multi-song, full-length Emotions. They be playing around on Instagram and then, unreleased stuff. I want to see them perform it.
It'd be 60-minute clips, very, very cute, on the couch harmonies, but not
the Emotions are very near and dear to my heart, but I don't know if I think I'm just so used to seeing Miss Wanda, and I forget the other lady's name.
Their voices it's a little too special for me. I like the tone. I love Best of My Love, but they just don't. But the Pointer Sisters, I would love to see En Vogue do Cloudburst and Bet You Got a Chick on the Side. That would be so much fun. So yeah, I'm with you, JP. I want to see them tribute the Pointer Sisters. That would be awesome. And Barry Gordy, I think he's getting honored at Kennedy Center tomorrow. I'm praying that they're a part of that, because I know they're in New York. That would be cool if they got to be a part of some type of Motown tribute.
The Supremes.
Yes.
So Josh, what's your third? What's your third top favorite?
So this is maybe this is a little controversial, but I don't have a top 3 in totality. I just sort of go with what's feeling right at the moment. And I thought about this, and at the moment it was a performance that I think JP mentioned on a previous episode, which is Sad But True, and it's at the Night of the Proms. And the reason I chose this performance is because I think Masterpiece, the album just doesn't get enough love, first and foremost. I also really love that it is a lineup that we didn't see a ton of, and so I think that the way that they split that song up and how they choose to approach it with that particular lineup is really interesting, and they sound so good. It's just I don't know. Sometimes I like to do fantasy football, but with En Vogue, to sometimes figure out different songs, what a different lineup might have sounded like on a different song. So I love that particular, lineup of Terry, Max, and Rona got to approach that song that way. And I think the audience was really into it. It was just a beautiful performance top to bottom for me.
It's a winter day, 5 years too late. I'm feeling cold inside, holding
vocally, everything, it was it's like so crisp and good to me. So that's my third. What about you?
I love that performance so much.
Yeah.
Like you can hear a pin drop. Like it was a very captivating performance, and you know, I love to hear Max, you know, really go in, and she did really well, and it was nice to hear Rona on Cindy's leads on that song.
Right.
You know, like she has such a pretty tone.
What about you, Champ? What's your third?
So my third is En Vogue singing "Don't Let Go" live at the Soul Train Awards. But there are several performances that I feel like I can watch over and over again, and that's one of them. And I think it's because one, they open the show with the ballad, which isn't like, you know, you think that you open the show with something high energy, but they open the show with the ballad because obviously "Don't Let Go" was very, very popular at that time. But then it's kind of like you see them in these like nude color gowns. The wind is blowing. They have the dancers who are shirtless, and like they come in on these platforms and posing. I'm just like, this looks good. I just thought that the presentation of it all was super iconic for me, because it's kind of like, we don't need all the bells and whistles. We're going to stand here in our gowns and we're going to sing for you. You know, like Beyonce, or you know what I mean? Like Beyond, kind of at like in the Too Gone Too Long video when the wind started going and the glass broke. It was like that kind of moment for me. You know, it's like, cause Beyonce and Mariah Carey, they have their like, their fan is their signature thing on the stage when they perform. So like seeing that with, even there was a moment where like, I think it was Cindy was walking across the stage, and like you could see how the air blowing was like having her dress like flip in the air. I'm like, you better walk like an angel. You better walk like a goddess. Like I'm like, this is what it is. So I love that performance simply for the presentation of it. Now the vocals to me weren't on the level that you would expect, and it's probably because of the fan as well. So part of the reason why I love it is probably the reason why the vocals weren't that great.
And I always hated that performance because of the vocals. I was like, they don't sound good at all. But Dawn, in one of her quarantine interviews, she talked about that performance, that she was saying how like the wind was so hard, and she was like, it was, she said she didn't sound good, and how, you know, it was whatever, I guess the wind blowing in your face, and she was talking about how it definitely affected her vocals. I was like, well, okay, at least you have some self-awareness, because I always...
Yeah. Live singing and wind is not a good combination. Like any singer will tell you that if the air is off in the room, it's not going to be good. You know what I mean? Because you start drying out, you know, it's just a lot. So, but it's just my favorite performance simply for the for the presentation of it. It's one of my favorite performances, because exactly. They looked amazing, and I feel like it's kind of, you know, we do talk about like, you know, well, Matan does point out like their outfits a lot, you know, so it's kind of like, it's one of those moments where it's kind of like, they just look great. The hair, the makeup, the outfits, they looked amazing. Everything was like on point. So, third favorite.
Couldn't you hear the bracelet like chiming in the mic too? I feel like
a lot.
I feel like, if I'm not mistaken, I feel like you could hear like some accoutrements dangling in the mic.
I love that word so much. I love the word accoutrement.
I do too. I feel like I got it from either Monet Exchange or Bob the Drag Queen.
So what's your third favorite?
My third favorite is Give It Up, Turn It Loose at the inaugural ball.
Baby girl, I'm bad. Can love them once but not twice. Who plays games with no rules? Taste of this are no surprise. Happens almost every time. Love knocks you on your behind. Loved you hard, loved you long. Now this love is gone.
And Give It Up, Turn It Loose is probably my favorite En Vogue song. I love to hear Maxine sing it. I think this is like their only televised performance of that song. Yeah, I love the song. I love Maxine doing her thing. Like,
so JP, let me ask you. So it's just that particular performance of Give It Up, Turn It Loose because it's Give It Up, Turn It Loose and not the rest of the medley that they did that night? Just Give It Up, Turn It Loose?
Well, because the other songs they did like My Lovin', right? And
Free Your Mind and the Star Spangled Banner.
Yeah, I mean, those were not my favorite performances of My Lovin' or Free Your Mind. Okay. You know, like I have like a favorite performance of My Lovin' from that era, and I have a favorite performance of Free Your Mind. So I mean, you know, I don't really count those. But for like my top three, like I watch like the Give It Up, Turn It Loose performance kind of, you know, regularly if I'm on YouTube or whatever.
I love the outfit.
I mean, this is definitely one thing that I don't think I realized at that time versus now is how they really pushed boundaries with fashion. You know, like now the way people see stuff that like Rihanna wears now, like that's what En Vogue was doing in '93. You know, they were doing high fashion couture looks. And, you know, now the only person that really pushes that now is like a Rihanna or something. But En Vogue was doing that in '93.
Or Zendaya. Like Zendaya.
Oh,
well, as far as we're talking about music artists.
Yeah. But even Zendaya, to me, she's more like editorial as opposed to couture. Well, what I would think of as couture. But
well, to answer your question, Matan, I think that I thought that Terry looked the best. I thought she looked the best out of everybody. I did not like Dawn's hair, and
it was a mess, but I loved it. Like it was very different. Like it's very unique.
It was very stiff wear, and I was like, no, it's stiff there. Yes, baby, it's stiff right there. I think that I feel like if they would have just gave her like a long, you know, it would have looked better. But I didn't like Maxine's look. She looked like a cute auntie.
I loved her. She like Maxine. This is another thing. People don't give Maxine props, but there was no one in mainstream music rocking natural hairstyles like Maxine was from the gate. Like she would have her micro braids. You know, she was doing all of that during EB3. She chopped it all off. And, you know what I'm saying? Like nobody else in like mainstream music was really giving that type of natural vibes. And like, we're going to be natural and we're going to make it high fashion.
Especially in a girl group,
especially in a girl group.
Yeah, I especially want to give her props. I love Maxine with like her short hair, like her hair in the "Don't Let Go" video. I thought she looked amazing, even in the EB3 era when she would dye her hair different shades of blonde. Like one of my performances is she had like platinum blonde hair with her natural. I loved her that way because you didn't see a lot of black women, you know, in a pop space given that look, and she worked it. She worked it because don't look over there, that bodysuit, baby. Maxine.
I would love to interview her. Like, I love Maxine. I would love to ask her, like, if she got any pushback or if she had to really fight any battles. I heard her speak about it briefly at one point. Right. I remember her saying in an interview that there was always a battle as far as her weight and different things. I did hear her mention something like that, but I've never heard her speak in depth about, like, what that fight must have been like. Because in the 90s, to be a black woman and be like, I'm going to have short hair, and not a short Halle Berry cut, but like a Caesar, a low cut, you know, in 97, like that was unheard of for a mainstream group. So I would love to hear what her journey was and how she had to fight. Yeah, because I'm sure there was a fight, you know, to own her look. So that is something I definitely. Maxine, I know you or your people are listening.
We love you. Come on,
please. We will. I would love to hear those stories. Like, you know. Please.
Yeah, we have a lot of tweets. Mm-hmm. She liked the tweets.
We want, because the battles that Black women fight behind the scenes are very real. Like Dawn Rashard talked about it when they did Diddy Dirty Money, and they told Diddy you should have a light skinned girl, and like, you know, just like that whole portion. Like even Beyonce, you know, talking about how they, you know, her album, they didn't think that she had any hits, but it's just kind of like, you know, I know that there are stories that would be empowering for young Black women in this day and age. I think that it would be beneficial to share. So agree.
And for the record though, I loved Maxine's little micro braids, and I thought she looked the best for me. Like she was giving like sassy auntie for sure, and I lived for it.
I mean the boobies.
Very much so, sassy auntie.
The boobies were sitting. The boobies were sitting. But I thought Terry looked the best in that performance. Matan, what's your second favorite?
My second favorite performance would have to be "Don't Let Go," but on SNL in 1997. My reasoning is because, like, Don't Let Go, there's so much going on with that song. It's a huge song. Of course, we're used to Dawn singing lead on it, but I feel like this performance, to me, it just kind of took it almost to another level. I love the interaction with the band, and I love how it introduced that kind of break that they do with "We Can Make It Fly." You know, like that's not in the actual song. So I love when artists, you know, with the live version, they kind of do something different and add something to it. So that part, there was just a magic, and I remember the audience started clapping with it. I love everything about the performance. I love just, there's a kind of ferocity in it almost, and they look like, I don't know, like almost like Egyptian deities or something. They have the big statement jewelry, the silver, they're in all black. Everyone looks great to me. Cindy and Terry have like the same kind of hairstyle. That's, to me at the time, I don't think I've ever seen a hairstyle like that. I don't know what it's called. And then Maxine, like we were talking about, she has her natural hair. So they look great. They sound great. And I think there was some controversy with that episode because they're supposed to do whatever. And there are performances, there are clips of the performance, I guess the dress rehearsals, and so they're in full dress and you see all these dancers and all this stuff, but for some reason it didn't air, and I'm thinking it's because of like the issue with the track. And so with Don't Let Go, like there's might be two versions of that performance, but one of them you can kind of hear there's a track playing at the beginning, then they take it out. So this is a performance where you know it's no track at all. It's like all their vocals, and I really wish they would have more faith in their vocals and not really relied on tracks like after Dawn left. And so like to me, it's almost like they're kind of fighting, you know, they're pushing with everything to really give a good performance without that track and not have any kind of holes or anything missing. So it's just it's very ferocious. It's just very raw. I love it, the vocal, and then I love how they look. It's just magic to me.
Their outfits are very like Matrix.
Yes.
To me, like all the all black, the slick back hair, the dark lip, very much so. And like I said, Maxine rocking this natural hair is just, it will forever be iconic to me for sure.
I have to know the behind the scenes conversation about this hair, because I'm looking at the video now, because this is not one of the performances that I've seen. I've seen this like maybe once or twice, so it's not one of the performances of En Vogue that I've seen that often. And Cindy and Terry definitely have the same hairstyle. Max got her low cut Caesar with the deep waves, and I just have to know what their fight. I have to know what that discussion was like. I want to know what Cindy and Terry thought when she showed up with her low cut.
Well, she was the one whose hair was always, well, no, not just Maxine. It was Maxine and Don. Like, their hair was always unique to them. And Cindy and Terry kind of always, they would do the same things with their hair. Like, even on the Born to Sing album cover, like, their hair is the infamous Born to Sing album cover. Their hair is the same length, and it's basically the same style that Don's is longer than Maxine has the braids. So it was like Maxine kind of knew. And I think everyone's head shape and neck shapes are different. And so sometimes when Maxine would wear wigs, her neck isn't that long. I feel like, the proportions are kind of off. So I don't think they would have an issue with the shorter hair. Now, maybe the natural hair or something. And just as an anecdote, like, I would always rent this En Vogue VHS whenever we would go to like Blockbuster or whatever back in the day. And there was this, it was the one where they were it was behind the scenes of Funky Divas, and Maxine had her natural hair and it was just so big and vibrant. But I remember like my older cousins would just kind of laugh at that. And it's like, like, what issue do we have with our natural hair? So I see.
That's the thing. Like, natural hair, like, Black women really have started embracing like the natural hair, the twist outs. And in the last, 15 years or so, like you can start to see that more. It was just so rare to see that back then. Like, I remember like in the 90s, I remember being young and seeing Maxine then, and I was just like, well, why is she like, I'm going to be honest. Like, I remember watching it and kind of thinking like, well, why is that happening? Now me being much older, I have such a different level of appreciation for it. But me being, not even a teenager at the time, seeing that, I'm like, she looks different than the others. So why is that a thing? You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, and I think that speaks to, how powerful the media is and what representation means. Like now I can see it and think, oh, she is fierce, like she is everything with it. But at that time as a kid, I was like, why does she look different? Honestly.
Yeah. That's real. That's real.
So my second fave is Whatever at the MTV Awards.
I'm wanting you too much. Don't take advantage of my tender heart and everything about me. In giving you my trust, I'm giving you my love. So you take care, be gentle with my heart.
I think it segues in really nicely into like the conversation we just came out of, because so much of what I love about that performance, first and foremost, I think that they like turn it choreography wise. I think there's like a stage presence thing that's like on 100. And I think it's because like first single, third album, like I think they were hungry to prove, especially in front of an MTV audience, not like a general big MTV audience, like that they could still do and show out as a threesome. And more importantly, I think that like the aesthetics, the aesthetics of the EV3 era, both like with like covers, packaging, all the things, is just my favorite. Mm-hmm. Like not even just of En Vogue, but like of a lot of artists. It's just like so good. And I think that literally, that sort of album cover, it's interesting to see how they, that concept or that aesthetic transcends a lot of different other things like performances and other photo shoots and videos, etc. And so I think that performance, the hair, the outfits, it's just next level for me. It's next level for me. And to see like all of them kind of giving some sort of version of a natural like vibe. And then I think it's also really important to put things in time and place and sort of how whatever and like that era of En Vogue lines up with like Janet and Got Till It's Gone and all these other sort of parts of that moment where people were kind of giving similar, like we were embracing things in ways that we hadn't before. And it's so good to see a group that was otherwise known for traditional, more Eurocentric glamour, where it's like straight hair, short dresses, you know, like long legs, you know, tight, give like printed pantsuits and give like, you know, give big natural hair, right, and faux locks. And it was just kind of like, okay, this is really different. And then on top of that, just like they were performing so good. Like when they do that sitting down choreography where they like cross their legs and like sequence, it's just so good to me. It's so good to me. And I will forever ride it. Like whatever is just, I think still for it to have been a I guess moderate hit, I just think it doesn't get the love it gets or it should get for what Babyface turned that out to me. And so I think that is such a good song for them that doesn't get enough love. So this performance with all of the other elements just really elevates the whole single to me.
Can I ask you guys all a question? The performances that we have picked so far, did you guys see them when they first aired, or were you seeing them like years after and like kind of discovering them?
It was first aired for me. Like this performance of whatever, I taped it on VHS and I would watch it daily. Literally, I would come home from school, put the tape in the VCR, and I would watch it. I would do the choreography. Like I lived for this. I lived for this performance. Like, this is my favorite En Vogue performance. And I think it's because the Funky Divas performances, I was so much younger. And so I saw those performances live. But this performance was a performance where, like, I was, I guess, older and I could, like, record it and watch it over. And, like, this performance is everything.
This performance for me, like, and this is a good example, is like kind of both, because I remember seeing this performance, but I've really only like what's taken it to favorite has been repeatedly watching it in the YouTube era. And unfortunately, like I think the one I've been watching for forever is like so grainy and fuzzy. Like I don't even really recall what it looks like in high, like what it would look like in like good quality. Right. So like, you know, it's weird to have memories of seeing something first and have vivid memories of that, but to know that you're only really watching a half quality version of it now. So yeah, it's kind of a bit of both. Yeah.
I mean, I remember when that one aired, I remember watching that award show, and I think Jewel performed. I know Hanson was there, but I don't know if they were the act that performed, but I know there were 3 acts, and En Vogue might have gone last. But that was it was an exciting time. I think like, both of you, it was Funky Divas. A lot of the performances I did not see. I couldn't watch too much TV, but the EV3 era, I remember like, you know, knowing what stuff was going to come on. And so this kind of kicked it off. And I feel like whatever was probably one of the songs that they performed the most as far as televised performances. There were so many of them. I don't think anything will ever surpass Hold On. They did Hold On like 1,000 times, but whatever, there are a lot of televised performances of whatever. And
also, and Josh, you made an interesting correlation with like Janet and Got Till It's Gone, because that was literally, I think, within the same year. I think Velvet Rope came out maybe in 96 or 97.
It was 97, later in 97.
And it's so interesting though, because Got Till It's Gone, it had such a, you know, I'm a Janet stan. It had such a lackluster response initially, but she saved the era with Together Again, which is the more pop dance up tempo record. And En Vogue, you know, definitely, I think people, because I remember when EV3 came out, and now when I look at the cover and all the artwork and even the video for whatever, I'm like, this is like next level. This is high fashion, avant-garde, everything.
That was some American Horror Story stuff in that video.
But at that time, I remember thinking like, this is different. Like, I didn't hate it. I obviously liked it because I went out and bought it. I supported it and I played it out. But I remember thinking, this is so different. And I remember looking at the album cover and going like, why are they doing something so different? Like, it Like, what is happening here? And I think it's interesting to have like the level of appreciation years later to realize how above fray they were from everyone else and how like cutting edge they were. I have such an appreciation for it today versus then. Like then I thought like, well, this is interesting. I don't get it. I don't know why it's so different than what I'm used to seeing, but I didn't hate it. But now I have such a higher level of appreciation for it. And I think that if only they had like a Together Again, the way Janet had that second single, which like really saved the Velvet Rope. Like if only they had that second single to really take them, you know, to really be that mainstream thing, I think EV3 could have been such a bigger era for them, you know?
Agreed. I agree with that for sure. So my second favorite performance is the performance that you mentioned earlier, Jonathan, which is the old school medley on the 1993 Soul Train Awards. Soul Train used to be it.
Yes.
Back in the day. Soul Train used to be a moment back in the day, but I feel like now it's kind of just faded because we don't have a lot of black artists that are performing on this level anymore, you know? But the old school melody that En Vogue is still great to watch. When you have like iconic women like Shaka Khan, you know, like all the women that they sang after Heard Through the Grapevine, Tell Me Something Good, like you can't always do those songs justice because they're such iconic songs. So if it's a cover, you better come with it or you better go home, baby. And I feel like En Vogue really brought it, especially it being like still in like the early stages of their career as a group, to come out and sing like that in front of a live studio audience. I feel like it really set them apart from a lot of other girl groups because it's kind of like, okay, they're beautiful, they can sing, you know, they can sing their songs, but like to come out and sing these other songs in the same key, with the same range, with the same conviction, amazing. And baby, that Maxine. Is this a Maxine Stan episode? Is that what this is? Because baby, that Maxine, and I love it because like, you know, Dawn had her leads, Cindy had her leads, even Terry had her leads, and they all sounded great. But the moment that bass came in and Maxine walked to the front, she did that. She did that. And it was the right song for her voice. Cause I remember her doing an interview, years ago where she had said like, you know, when she always was a soprano. So her singing like alto and tenor was like new for her when she joined En Vogue. So like her singing how she always sang how she was a soprano when she first started singing. So like to kind of see, I'm sure she could have did the other songs, but I felt like that song, it really complimented her tone so well. None of the other women could have did it the way she did it. That's kind of how I feel. But yeah, that old school medley, it's just their dresses look great. The afros, yes, I thought was a cute little touch. And like the cute little mini skirts and like them dancing and like even seeing like the three in the background having like a whole 8-count choreography going on while somebody was singing lead. I just thought was like, this is great. It felt fun. It felt exuberant. Like the vibe was great. It was just a really, really fun performance for me. And I felt like that was like peak En Vogue for sure. Vocals, stage presence, fashion. It all was great for me.
I love that performance. I love them all in pink. That is pink, right? I know my colors can be off sometimes, but
it's like a feels like a pastel like pinkish color. It looked like it was like velour or like a suede or something because it was very bouncy.
And dancing and the dances that they're doing in those high heels, the robot and all that, and just not a step out of like it just is a great performance. And Shaka was in the audience, so that's always funny when they pan to her when they start doing "Tell Me Something Good." They were introduced by Luther, and there might have been a little bit of shade in his intro.
The shady queen himself.
And it was just a great night because I know they won the Sammy Davis Jr. Award. We were talking about groups and who has who gets more respect. I don't know that any one of the other groups that we mentioned in their prime were able to get the Sammy Davis Jr. Entertainer of the Year award. So En Vogue got that, and they won, I think, best album or best group album or something. It was just it was like a coronation almost. It was a really great night, and I wish the clip of them accepting and the tiaras and those long trains, I wish that was still on YouTube. I don't know what happened to it.
Y'all gotta download these things off of YouTube because these things be up one day and gone the
next.
You mentioned something, Cham, that I found very interesting because I heard Maxine talking about how she was always a soprano too, and I just thought that was so interesting because listening to Maxine's voice, I've never really thought soprano.
Yeah, because her voice is deep.
And so, yeah, and I think, and this can be, I don't know, for some ladies who may need to hear it, but I feel like everybody wants to be a soprano, and sometimes y'all got to learn how to accept your alto and stop stretching your voice more than it needs to, so that as you get older, your voice can be comfortable and and still be lush, so that because if you spend your 20s trying to be a soprano and you're naturally an alto.
Are you saying that this is no longer a Maxine Stan episode?
Because we took a turn, baby.
No, I love me some Maxine. I'm just saying, I heard her say that in an interview even recently, and I thought, really, you were always a soprano? Like, to me, I think it's cooler to be an alto who can sing soprano. Occasionally. Occasionally.
Yeah. I know a lot of sopranos who have really deep voices. And so when they do hit these notes, I'm like, wait, where did this come from? And I do know that, like, as singers, like, your voice does change over time. And sometimes people do have high ranges, but it's kind of like, but you probably should be singing in this right here.
It's like sing in the comfort zone. To me, like, your comfort zone should be where you identify as soprano, alto, or tenor. Because I heard something really interesting that Mariah Carey said in an old interview. She was saying that, I have the range where I can sing up, but my voice is naturally deeper. So I record my songs in a higher range. And she was talking about how it's hard for her to tour because naturally her voice is not that high.
Exactly.
She was saying, her
singing at the
right. So it's one thing to be able to hit a note and to record in that, but to have to do it that often, 5 nights a week, that'll tear your voice up. And I think so many singers damage their vocals because, just because you can hit it, that doesn't mean that's your comfort zone. That doesn't mean that's where you need to live. Exactly. You don't need to live in that space. You can visit that space. You can be a tourist in that.
That's probably even tougher though, especially like thinking about girl groups and like playing a role and having a, like, if you are naturally something and then you get put into another vocal like part and that is the role you play mostly the entirety of the group, that's gotta be really tough. Like, sometimes I think it works to people's advantages. Like, I think about like Destiny's Child, for instance. Kelly and Michelle kind of like play around in different places sometimes, but like they stuck Michelle on the bottom all the time, but Michelle can go all the way stratospherically all up, and so, and even Kelly, I think about that sort of iconic Star Spangled Banner or the stars. Oh, that too, like when they're in the where they sound like a mass choir. It's like, oh, you forget that these women can exist and thrive in other spaces vocally, and so I think that's really an interesting, like, especially girl groups, like they get stuck in a spot.
There are very few women who are like natural sopranos, like, first soprano. Like Cindy is the first soprano. You know, like that's I honestly feel like everybody else in Vogue really need to be singing alto and tenor.
That's what. But I agree. I feel like Maxine and maybe like a lot of black female singers are products of very aggressive choir directors because these choir directors. You always want a strong soprano section, and if you have the range, they will put you there for the power, and it's not necessarily like where you should be. Like even like I remember watching this show on Netflix that Pharrell produced it with a girl in there who sang tenor, and she said when she was in college and when she was in high school, her music teacher said women don't sing tenor. But so she sang alto, and she always lost her voice because she was singing alto and like sitting at the top of her range constantly. But she's like, no, I am a tenor, you know. And it's kind of like, no, it's okay if a woman sings tenor the same way it's okay if a man sings soprano, like Alex Newell or Avery Wilson, you know. So, but I agree. I mean, I definitely think that Maxine is an alto.
As someone who sang in the choir for years, like. It's people. I think it's like a badge of honor to be like, I'm a soprano. Like, girl, you're not really a soprano. Like, you really need to be singing alto. It's okay. Like, you know, the alto has lovely parts.
Well, it looks like we got we have some letters from folks who have submitted so graciously, which is beautiful. So yeah, let's check in with those fellow En Vogue fans and see what they have to say. So let's get to some letters, folks. Questions, comments, or anecdotes, please email them to us at partofusevf@gmail.com, and we will read them in an upcoming episode.
First up of the submitted letters is from, is it Herman or is it Herman? Herman.
Go with the first one. I like the way you said the first one.
Okay. So Mr. Herman asked, this is what he said. He said he thoroughly enjoyed the podcast. A very entertaining, chill, and fun ride. Covered a lot of interesting topics, and I appreciate that all different opinions and preferences are covered and respected. Well set up and good through line. Great editing. Looking forward to episode 2. We'll definitely tune in again. Keep it up. Oh, thank you so much.
Yay.
Thank you. We love it.
All right, we got another letter here from Justice Jackson. And it says, hey, part of our squad, my name is Jay, and I'm from Iowa. I'm a longtime member of the En Vogue craze, and I wanted to say congratulations on your first episode of the podcast, and boy, was it a hoot. Y'all had me rolling the entire time, but I must say I did not appreciate the Masterpiece Theater slander. She is that girl. Put some respect
Justice.
On that album's name.
Let them have it, Justice. Let them have it.
Okay, though, I do have a question, not to be messy, but let's touch on some of the recent drama. Do you think Cindy and Terry were wrong for blocking Don and Maxine from using the Funky Divas moniker? I like to know everyone's views and feelings on the whole matter. I can't wait for the next forthcoming episodes. Expect to hear from me quite a bit because I am that invested and I have a lot of questions and topics I can hopefully add to the discussion. So,
yes, Justice.
How do we feel about Cindy and Terry?
Justice. Yes.
I have very strong opinions.
I understand both sides. From a business standpoint, I get why Cindy and Terry would do it, and I'm not mad at it. But from like the emotional and, you know, from the other side, I get why Maxine and Dawn would feel away because they helped build that era and that name as well. So, I mean, I get both sides. If I were Cindy or Terry, I probably would have done the same thing. Maxine and Dawn could afford it if they had the, you know, the finances to hire a lawyer. I mean, that's not even shade. I mean, you know, you have to have a lawyer. You know, they're not going to do it for free, so you got to get a lawyer. And I think Maxine and Dawn both were honest and said, we didn't have, well, I know Dawn said we didn't have no money to hire anybody to fight that.
She couldn't get a fee waiver.
It is what it is. I don't know.
All I'm going to say is when McDonald's is saying, I'm McDonald's. If you open a restaurant called Big Mac's, McDonald's is going to say, no, 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 no. You also are, ain't nobody else going to use the phrase, I'm loving it, or any, like, these are a universe of things that are En Vogue centered. So I have no qualm with Cindy and Terry being like, I'm protecting the entirety of the brand. So you can't be out here running around using iterations of things and derivatives of our like brand and think that that's not going to be a problem. Like, it's good business. It's just good business.
Once we retained our attorney and he began the process of communicating with her attorney, we had to file for arbitration because that was the only way we felt like we could work this out. And in the meantime, she got in touch with Dawn, or vice versa. We believe she got in touch with Dawn, and then they started promoting, putting out there in the public that they were uniting to do another En Vogue. They had a group called En Vogue Heirs to the Throne, and they started booking shows. Well, that's when the trademark name became an issue because it's just not good business for the brand to have two touring En Vogues in the market. And ultimately it was affecting us getting work because the promoters were like, how do I know who I'm getting? And I don't want to hire any of y'all. And it was kind of like that. So then that became an issue, the name. The trademark name became an issue, and that's how it became an issue in arbitration. And ultimately the arbitrator decided, and the federal court confirmed it, that we would be the sole owners of that. We would retain the name.
I agree to an extent because I feel like, well, one, Funky Divas is clearly the title of one of their most popular albums, obviously. So it's like, sis, that's En Vogue. What are you doing? So I understand it in that regard. However, the name of the group is En Vogue. So I'm like, you still have the name En Vogue, so why can't we use Funky Divas? Because we are still a part of the legacy, so just let us take something where it's kind of, okay, we're not En Vogue, but it's still the same, we're still the same girls type of thing. So I guess to me, I felt like, why not just extend that olive branch to them to say, okay, well, use Funky Divas. From a business perspective, I understand branding and marketing, but I feel like you still have the name. You guys are still traveling as En Vogue. When people book En Vogue, it's coming to you, but Terry and Dawn and Maxine, they're just trying to stay afloat. So it's like, Funky Divas, okay, let them use that name. It's not a big deal. It's still separate from the main entity. So I understand from a legal standpoint, but I feel like to not make it so messy, just let them have it. Some battles don't need to be fought.
Right, and I think that's what causes so much extra bad blood. Because like you said, like from a business standpoint, I 100% agree and I get it. But it's like, those girls worked their asses off during the era as well. They deserve to be able to make a living. And even if they were to tour as Funky Divas, they're not taking money out of your pocket. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you're getting the top billing as En Vogue, the gigs that they would get as the Funky Divas, like, girl, they would be getting $5,000 a gig, split two ways. Like, it would not be the same, it would not be the same amount of money that they would get as En Vogue.
You both have said that you understand it from a business perspective. This is business. There's so much liability that can happen when you kind of like split things and it's not sure. So Cindy and Terry could still be sued for stuff that the Funky Divas, like just the way it's kind of structured. So I think it's kind of like with Climax, and I know you've probably seen the episode of Climax on Bands Reunited where there was the big thing about the trademark and who could use it and whatnot.
Yes.
I mean, ownership is so important. If, they just like kind of allow Donna Maxine to do that, then who knows how that would kind of come back as a repercussion for them if Donna Maxine, didn't have their paperwork right. And as we know, a lot of times their paperwork is not right. So you have to protect your intellectual property. the Funky Divas En Vogue is kind of synonymous, so that would still cause some type of confusion. So I wouldn't let them use it. Like, when you want to leave something, leave gracefully. That's what I appreciated when Dawn first left. She just left. She left and she tried to do her own thing. But now, because it's not working, don't try to like latch on to it. You've said so many negative things about the group and how it wasn't really your group and you like Lucy Pearl more and it was somebody else's vision. But now you want to be the Funky Divas. With Maxine, like, you tried to start another group using the En Vogue name. I mean, that didn't happen. It was blocked. And I knew,
to the throne.
Right, heir to the throne. But remember, at first it was called En Vogue to the Max, though, and it was like, we're En Vogue. It was like one of those kind of things, like, we're all En Vogue. So it's like, I feel like it's Cindy and Terry are kind of just protecting the legacy. To me, that's the way I look at it. And I agreed with Bands Reunited with Cheryl Cooley. She wanted to trademark the name to protect it. And when you have people that aren't like fiscally responsible and legally responsible, a lot can come back to Cindy and Terry just by Dawn and Maxine having that name.
That reminds me of this feels like a current issue that is this feels like an issue that's happening right now for these ladies that a lot of other groups, it feels like an old issue. Like think about Motown and all of that. Like, that was the problem, right? Was that there would be like 6 and 7 different iterations of a group touring at the same time, all as the Supremes, and y'all all were in the Supremes for 3 days, but like, you know, or whatever.
But I think it's a little bit different if you are touring as the name versus something else. Like, En Vogue is En Vogue. They were not trying to tour as En Vogue, so I don't really see that in the same vein.
But it's like if somebody tried to tour as the Queen of Soul, and then somebody's like, well, I thought about the Queen of Soul. I'm suing Aretha Franklin because I thought the Queen of Soul was coming. And just, even though it's a nuisance lawsuit, you still have to deal with the litigation. So, you know what? No, we're not going to allow you to call something that's synonymous with us. We own the, well, I don't even think they owned it at the time. I don't know why they didn't trademark that, because I knew.
I firmly believe, like, I'm not an attorney, but I firmly believe if they fought it, they could have gotten away with using it because it wasn't trademarked, and you know, like, they didn't have any rights to it, but they didn't have the money to do that, so it is what it is. But this is something interesting because 112, I don't know if you guys have seen 112, they've been kind of on social media going through this similar situation with the trademark.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like, so Slim actually sued the other Q and I think Darren over this whole trademark thing. He ended up getting the trademark for 112, and there's this whole big thing about it, and you know, the two other guys are mad because they feel like, well, it's our name, we all did it. But basically Q was like, well, I did it first, I trademarked it first, and so he owns the name, which I think is just kind of, it's just shady. Like, if you build something with someone together, you've built that success. Why does one person have the right to say, well, I'm going to own the name because I'll file the paperwork first? That's so crazy to me.
A liability, it's protection. I think that's like in the previous episode, we were talking about business and contracts and all that stuff. It's like how Rona, when they signed the deal with Roughtown Records, Rona ended up being named in the lawsuit, and she didn't have anything to do with that. So I'm just saying, like, there are things that can happen when you don't have your business in order. I think when the first lawsuit happened with the name En Vogue, I was like, I hope En Vogue trademarks Funky Divas and EV3 because that's what's coming next. I had that thought. So I knew that was going to happen eventually, and it did. But I agree with them doing that just because there's so much that can come from you not owning intellectual property, and then Dawn and Maxine using it. There's, you know, that can still come back and bite Cindy and Terry in the tuchus.
For sure, because even if it doesn't go to trial or become like, you still have to pay for a lawyer to set the lawsuit straight. If someone wants to sue you, they, you know, it's still money involved. So I do get into that regard. It's kind of like, you guys are legends. Just tour as Dawn and Max. We know who you are.
Right.
We know who you are, sis. You know, like, just tour as Dawn and Max or whatever. I definitely think it was a petty thing. So there is a way to protect the brand, because even with Slim, it's like, obviously no one's going to see 112 with just Slim. You know,
but wasn't he the lead singer?
I mean, he was, but then Q and Darren, they have leads too. He was like I think he was at the second, like him and Darren like had like they were like on the same level as far as like leads go. If Dawn and Max do performances, like I mean, Josh gave the side eye. It is true. It's like if you tour as Funky Divas, that is kind of taking money out of people's pockets because people take sides. People do take sides, so it's like, oh well, we're going to invite Funky Divas to this festival, not En Vogue, So it's like, well, that would have potentially been money for Cindy and Terry as well, So it's like it can get very muddy. And when touring is your livelihood at this point in your career, I feel like that really matters. Like that really, really matters.
I mean, I'm interested in the 112. Oh, I know, we're so way over time, but like. I want to know more about that just because like with En Vogue, I feel like I can comment because I looked at the legal docs and all that stuff. With 112, I don't know what's going on, but there might be a reason why Slim needed to protect it. So I can't comment on that, but I don't necessarily think business moves are petty. I feel like when you're like, you're not Bill Gates or Jeff Bezos or something and you make business moves, people, might not understand why, but I don't think it's necessarily personal all the time.
The only thing I can say is, I mean, I get the business, but I think that, and maybe I don't know the whole process, but I just think it's very weird that if we build something together, just because you beat me to the punch to file paperwork, it doesn't feel right that you get to keep something that we all built. You know what I'm saying? Like that just seems very unethical. Okay, so I would say verbiage is important. I get what you're about to say, but I would say verbiage is important. So it's like it's not necessarily that Cindy and Terry. I was thinking about 112. I know En Vogue's situation is a little bit different, but literally 112's situation was Slim filed the paperwork first. And he got the trademark. I know with En Vogue, Cindy and Terry were actively in Vogue. And so it makes perfect sense why they have the trademark, why they have the name versus Maxine and Dawn. But I was really speaking about 112. Like that situation is really weird to me. And it seems like legally that should be some type of review process to kind of like to figure out who should be owning what, Well, that being said, we're going to wrap up this episode. It has been a very, very, very entertaining one at that. I want to thank everybody that is listening. And again, we want to say you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Amazon Music Podcasts, and YouTube. For more En Vogue related content, find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at En Vogue Craze. Any comments or questions, please send them to envoguecraze@gmail.com. Thanks, Matan. Thanks, Jonathan. Thanks, Joshua. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter. My name is @It'sChampJohnson.
Instagram, Twitter, everybody loves JP. There's EVERYBTY loves JP.
You can find me on Instagram and Twitter @JoshJenks, JoshJenks, and at JoshuaHenryJenkins.com.
And you can find me on YouTube at Your Little Dog 2. That's URLILDAWG 2, the number.
With that being said, thanks everybody for listening. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
This episode of Part of Us at En Vogue Fancast was researched, written, produced, and edited by Matthew at Culture Inject Productions. The intro and outro music was produced by Wolves and Vincent Tone. We're more than just a podcast, we're a fan community. You can keep up to date on En Vogue and chat with other fans by visiting En Vogue Craze on Facebook. You can also follow us on YouTube and Instagram at En Vogue Craze and Twitter at Part of Us Fancast. Part of Us and En Vogue Fancast is not endorsed by En Vogue, E1 Music, or En Vogue Records, and is intended for entertainment and educational purposes only. En Vogue and its names, images, and audio clips are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of the respective copyright holders.
All right, and 1, 2, 3, clap.
Oh.